We are now live with the event An Accelerated Push to Tackle Anti-Semitism, the Double German Presidency.
Welcome everyone. Thank you for your patience and thank you very much. We hope you're all well and healthy. My name is Alina Bricman. I am the Director of EU Affairs at B'nai B'rith International. It's a pleasure to welcome you today together with the European Jewish Congress and under the leadership of the European Parliament Working Group Against Anti-Semitism for what I'm sure will be a very interesting and important discussion. We will be looking at opportunities presented by the German presidencies of both the Council of the European Union and the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. And I'm really glad to co-moderate this discussion together with Ariela Wojcik, the Director of European Affairs at the European Jewish Congress. Ariela.
Thank you very much, Alina. On behalf of the European Jewish Congress, federating over 40 national Jewish communities across Europe, many of which have joined us today, it is our great pleasure to co-host this event. We are grateful for the participation of all our speakers, so please allow me to introduce them to you. We are honored to have with us Her Excellency Ambassador Michaela Kuechler, Chair of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, and His Excellency Ambassador Felix Klein, Commissioner for Jewish Life in Germany and the Fight Against Anti-Semitism, who will join us in a few minutes. Unfortunately, His Excellency Ambassador Michael Klaus, the permanent representative of the Federal Republic of Germany to the EU, given the nature of this very busy period, is currently held up in another meeting with counterparts, but he hopes to be able to join us later. We are grateful that Dr. Jurij Aston, Head of Political Affairs in the Permanent Mission of Germany to the EU, is able to be with us. It is particularly important to highlight a Jewish perspective to the discussion, and we are pleased to welcome Ms. Raya Kalenova, Executive Vice President and CEO of the European Jewish Congress, and Mr. Benjamin Gutmann, President of the European Union of Jewish Students. We are also grateful to MEP Nicola Beer, Vice President of the European Parliament and Chair of the Working Group Against Anti-Semitism, and to MEP Sergey Lagodinsky, Vice President of the Working Group, for hosting this important discussion. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Vice President Beer for the opening statement. Please, Ms. Beer.
Yes, thank you, Ariela, thank you, Alina, and thank you all participants also on the screens. It's good that we discuss these really important topic as we live really in challenging times. 75 years after the deliberation of Auschwitz, we all commemorated it in Brussels, but also in Yad Vashem. 70 years after the Schuman Declaration as the beginning of the European Union, anti-Semitism in Europe is growing. I mean, for me as a German, especially the terrible attack in Halle marks this this case, but we see it in several studies all over Europe. And European Union is under pressure in those pandemic times. The pandemic of COVID-19 is like a sort of stress test for the European institutions and their way to act, or sometimes not to act, or to act too slowly. And it shows a little bit like under a burning glass how fragile our union is when not only in short time of some hours frontiers were reinstalled in an uncoordinated way by the member states, but also the pandemic gave rise to conspiracy theories, especially anti-Semitic ones, so that Jews or Israel were producing the virus to sell medicaments or vaccines afterwards, and so to benefit from the crisis and suffering the suffering of others. So I think it's really important now to discuss how to accelerate and the push to tackle anti-Semitism and how urgently this is needed. And I'm really hoping that the double presidency of Germany as in the Council of the European Union and in the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, give us the opportunity to focus on the fight against anti-Semitism all over Europe. For Germany, the fight against anti-Semitism and the special relationship to Israel are raison d'etat, raison of state. So Germany shortly began to execute the Hezbollah ban, which was decided by the German Bundestag last year. And with Mr. Klein, we have a special commissioner to organize the fight against anti-Semitism together with the regional states and the local level. So I'm really happy and thankful that we have so high appreciated participants from the European institutions and also from the Jewish community to discuss with you. And I can say as the chair of the working group, and I think I'm also speaking in the name of Sergey, that this cooperation for us is really important. I mean, European Parliament and also the working group against anti-Semitism in European Parliament are partner of the civil society as well as to the Commission and to the Council. And so there is a really, really good cooperation, for example, with Katharina von Schnurbein, who is the coordinator for combating anti-Semitism in the Commission. Together, we hope to accomplish that all member states in Europe adopt and establish in their administration, schools, and society the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which European Parliament endorsed with its resolution in 2017. So big challenges, but also big opportunities. I'm really looking forward to this very important and urgent discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Beer, for your important remarks. Let me now pass the floor to MEP Lagodinsky for his opening statement. Thank you. Sergey, are you?
Here you go. Yes, I'm with you now, as always in those digital times. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and to be able to open this and host this meeting together with our chair. Thank you to everyone being here. I agree with Nicola 100% what she said. These are very difficult times, and the German presidency is coming in very delicate situation. People are nervous. A lot of people are somewhat disoriented by the situation. And as always in those situations, people are looking for those who can be blamed for this very unclear situation. And very often these are minorities, and very often these are also Jews. And therefore, it is important to stay the course and to know and to say what sometimes is not comfortable for many people, especially under certain difficult situations. And that's why I'm also very happy to see Mr. Klein as one of our guests, who is someone who speaks out his mind, especially in difficult situations, difficult discourses. We saw this during the past months. And I think we need someone like that, and we need more people like this, who, with all the difficulties of all different discussions, speak out their mind if it is about anti-Semitism. It is important from my perspective and from our perspective in the upcoming months that the priorities will remain not only economic policies and health policy. I think we cannot imagine a way out of this crisis or multiple crises that we are in if we don't think about democracy, if we don't think about combating hate. And that is very important. There are no hard and soft topics in a situation like this, and anti-Semitism and racism are definitely not soft topics that can be brushed aside because we are combating pandemics. They have to be thought with everything else, otherwise we will end up in a catastrophe. It is important to say and to name the problems within the EU. It is therefore very important to talk about governments like governments of Mr. Orban or of others who play and toy with certain stereotypes. And I think it will be a challenge for the German presidency, but I hope that this challenge will be mastered as well. And it is important, as Nicola also mentioned, not to focus solely on punishing someone and criminalizing acts, but also on education. And here, education of law enforcement, of police, judges, and prosecutors are important. It is important to say that police in our states, in democracy, in our states, in Germany and in Europe, plays a role of an important safeguard for democracy. There will be no Jewish life imaginable in Germany without police as a partner, as a constitutional partner. But as in every segment of society, we need to learn. And it is important to learn about Jewish life. It is important to learn about racism and anti-Semitism. And this is the effort that we hope to see during the 6 upcoming months, that more will be invested in trainings, in combating racism, and in learning and giving an opportunity for those structures to learn about Jewish life and anti-Semitism and racism. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the debate.
Thank you very much, Sergey, for your insightful comments. Before we give the floor to our guest speakers, it is important to understand from the perspective of the Jewish community the landscape in which we are operating today, especially in the context of the pandemic. So allow me to start with you, Ms. Kalenova. Could you please give us a brief overview of the current challenges faced by the Jewish community in Europe? And we would also like to hear what European Jewish communities expect from this double German presidency in terms of policies and legislation. This will enable us to understand how the actions planned by Germany in this dual role represent an answer to the reality on the ground. Ms. Kalenova, the floor is yours.
You hear me? 1 second. Yes, do you hear me now? Yes, you hear me? So, dear friends, it is a pleasure to be with all of you today, and it is an immense credit to our partners from the Federal Republic of Germany that despite the principal challenge of the pandemic and protecting Europe's economy, the focus on the fight against anti-Semitism has not been lost. We are fortunate indeed that the double German presidency may enable us to develop historic and meaningful policy initiatives. I am therefore extremely grateful for the presence here today of Her Excellency Ambassador Kuechler, as well as Dr. Felix Klein and Dr. Jurij Aston. Thank you for being with us today. And a special greeting to our partners in the European Parliament Working Group Against Antisemitism, our chair, Nicola Beer, and our vice chair, Sergey Lagodinsky. Thank you. As our communities continue to respond to the pandemic and adapt to this new reality, anti-Semitism continues to be a cause of deep concern. And as you can imagine, it was truly heartbreaking to hear protesters shouting violent anti-Semitic slogans in a recent anti-racist march in Paris. It has also been shocking to witness the proliferation of anti-Semitic hatred and conspiracy theories online since the beginning of the pandemic. In addition, as demonstrated in the latest report of the Cantor Center in Tel Aviv University, there has been a steady increase of anti-Semitic violence. In order to organize an effective response, a coordinated approach is necessary. And the Council Declaration on the Fight Against Anti-Semitism, adopted almost 1.5 years ago, unanimously by all member states, is the basis of this approach. The declaration seeks to fight and prevent the manifestations of anti-Semitism and also to guarantee protection of Jewish communities from the direct effect of this hate. Some member states, in coordination with their Jewish communities, have met this challenge and made the necessary commitments, but there is still a long way to go. I will not name now good pupils and bad pupils, but we are still far from the results that we are expecting. And regarding to the objectives of this declaration, the problems that were present before the lockdowns are not going away and are even mutating into different and more worrying forms. The online sphere has an accelerating effect on spreading and legitimizing hate to new audiences. There is an urgent need to increase accountability online, and through the latest legislation, Germany is leading the way in these efforts, and I hope that others will follow this excellent example. We need to strengthen our European Mr. Klein is there, I see. Because the long-term consequences of this phenomenon pose a fundamental threat to all our democratic societies. Therefore, it is essential to include the fight against anti-Semitism and disinformation as part of our upcoming European Union Democracy Action Plan. Sadly, the growth of disinformation has also resulted in the explosion of materials online denying and distorting the Holocaust. The response has to be twofold: punishing wrongdoers, but also, as mentioned Ms. Beer, also promoting Holocaust education across the European Union and monitoring progress. We can rely on the expertise and practical guidance of IHRA, and we must continue promoting not only the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, but also the definition of Holocaust denial and its distortion. Another important issue is the physical security of Jewish communities and the security of also Jewish institutions. We need greater clarity in this regard across the European Union because the threats mutate and materialize, as we so recently witnessed in Halle last autumn. To conclude, as President Steinmeier put it in his beautiful and historic speech at the World Holocaust Forum in Jerusalem, there cannot be an end to remembrance, and Germany's responsibility was integrated in the very fabric of the Federal Republic from day one. And this is very important for us all. This country deserves much credit for its strong initiatives against anti-Semitism, which are not only an aspect of this responsibility, but which has also contributed to strengthen German democracy. So thank you very much. And I wanted just to say last word, as there cannot be an end to remembrance, there cannot be an end to vigilance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Raya, for your important remarks. And maybe just to highlight a few of the things that you mentioned, the importance of tackling Holocaust denial, the importance of ensuring physical security, tackling online anti-Semitism, but also incorporating anti-Semitism as part of the EU's democracy action plan, the plan to build more resilient democracies of the European Commission, as well as the importance of punishing perpetrators, but also looking at protecting victims and educating the public, as was said also by MEP Beer and MEP Lagodinsky. So a lot of important points already. And let me now turn to Bini. The European Union of Jewish Students is the voice of young Jews. You heard the remarks of Ms. Kalinova. Do you feel that these points resonate? What would you add further in terms of the specific realities of young Jews? And what is it that you need to better accommodate their priorities?
Thank you so much for having me. WGAS is the umbrella organization of Jewish student unions in 36 European countries, and I'm representing 160,000 young Jews all over Europe. So also thank you very much for acknowledging the importance of including youth voices in such debates. Last year, the European Commission and Fundamental Rights Agency of the European Union, on the advice of WGAS, conducted the first ever survey on the perceptions and experiences of anti-Semitism among young Jewish Europeans. And I want to share some of the results with you. 81% of young Jewish Europeans say that anti-Semitism is a big or a very big problem in their country. And 83% think that anti-Semitism has increased over the past 4-5 years. 45% have experienced anti-Semitism personally in the past year. That means almost every second in Europe has been a victim of Jew hatred very recently. These numbers are quite shocking. And we can do better, and we must do better in Europe. But no, Europe is not a wasteland of anti-Semitism. On the contrary, Jewish life in Europe today is alive and well and vibrant. But there are a few steps that we must take right now. A few of the steps that are important for our area of expertise, young people, we have outlined last year in a guide that we released on what steps universities can take to best support their Jewish students. These steps include adopting the IHRA working definition of anti-Semitism, but also properly using them by including trainings for staff, but also for student leadership, and by having a functioning reporting system. But more importantly, also making sure that Jewish life is not clashing with their education. So making sure that Jewish students don't have to choose whether they want to observe Jewish holidays or whether they want to write an exam. But I think most importantly, and this goes beyond universities, but rather is relevant for all of Europe, we need to make sure that Jewish narratives are part of the broader European narrative. When we talk about Jews and Jewish communities in Europe, we do this in the realms of anti-Semitism, of the Shoah, and sometimes in the realm of the Middle East conflict. When we talk about Jews in schools and universities, we do it in history class. And don't get me wrong, all of these things are very, very important, and we spend a lot of our time with combating anti-Semitism and preserving the memory of the Shoah. But those are not everything. They are not what represents us. They are not what we are. And all of these things are very negatively connotated. And it makes it very easy to dehumanize whenever thinking about the Jewish contribution to a broader European narrative. So let's change that. Let's start talking about Jews when we talk about culture and art. Let's start teaching about Jews when we're teaching literature or physics. And let's make sure that Jews become a part of the much broader European civil society. Because this is a vision of a diverse and inclusive Europe that we aim for. But this is also a vision that is under threat with the coronavirus, but also something where hundreds of thousands of people went on the streets for in the last few weeks. And that actually leads me to my second point. Through the coronavirus, we have seen a dangerous rise of conspiracy ideologies and conspiracy myths. A lot of them, most of them, anti-Semitic. And they actually have something in common with the attackers of Halle, of Hanau, of Pittsburgh, of Poway, of Christchurch. Because what unites most of them, what unites actually almost all of them, is a trident of hate: anti-Semitism, racism, and misogyny. On the core values of WGAS, on the other hand, is that we are believing that Jewish rights are human rights and human rights are Jewish rights. To give you an example of this, just last week, together with Firena Menka, a Roma organization, we launched a solidarity pledge calling on the European Union to stand in solidarity and to act for endangered Romas all over Eastern Europe. One of the MEPs that actually signed that pledge was MEP Sergey Lagodinsky, so thank you very much for that. But the broader point I'm making, if we want to fight anti-Semitism, we need to engage in coalition building. As a personal example, before I took over WGAS and became WGAS's president, I was president of the Austrian Union of Jewish Students. And in Austria, we managed to get the National Union of Students, which is the legal representative of all students in Austria, to actually ban BDS from all Austrian campuses. And this has now led to the Austrian parliament very recently passing a motion that actually declared BDS anti-Semitic. And how did we achieve that? We achieved that for building coalitions with other leftist, anti-racist student organizations that then saw the value of fighting anti-Semitism with us because we fought racism with us. And I think that we need to stand hand in hand with other minorities. And that means that we have to tackle structural racism because it's right, but also because we as Jews will benefit from that. Because only in a diverse and inclusive Europe that counters the rise of ethno-nationalism that always excludes Jews will there be a long-term and vibrant Jewish future in Europe. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Bini. We appreciated very much, of course, the emphasis on the positive narratives that we absolutely need around Jewish culture and around Jews to explain who we are. So thank you very much for emphasizing that, as well as the need for more solidarity and for more coalition building. This is, of course, helpful for all of us, and this is what Europe is about. So thank you very much for reminding us of those important values, which are also Jewish values, as you said. Now, on the backdrop of these two very interesting interventions, we would like now to understand what the policy and the political responses will be. Of course, his expectations are particularly high of the German presidency with regard to the fight against anti-Semitism. Dr. Aston, I would like to turn now to you. Germany will lead the EU in a very difficult period. And besides the tremendous economic challenges that we will all face, Germany will also give priority to the fight against disinformation and conspiracy myth, as Bini and Raya mentioned, which threaten not only social cohesion, but they also represent a real danger to our communities. So can you please tell us broadly how the next 6 months will look like and how the fight against anti-Semitism will fit into the agenda? Dr. Aston, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much for convening this very important webinar today. Now, Michael Klaus, we really sense his regrets, but I'm very happy and more than happy to fill in for him. And as you just rightly put it, the fight against anti-Semitism will be an important topic of the German presidency, and particularly relevant in the COVID-19 crisis, as Bini Goodman has just elaborated. So many protests in connection with the crisis have, as also I believe Felix Klein has recently said to the press, turned out to be a gathering point for conspiracy theorists, Holocaust deniers, and other anti-Semites. We see how a topic which seems so far from anti-Semitism at first glance, the COVID-19 pandemic, has brought forth anti-Semitic ways of thinking inspired by conspiracy theories, anti-Semitic explanations for the disease are being spread across the internet. And fighting anti-Semitic content on social media, we believe, is important to protect the Jewish community and Jewish institutions. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, anti-Semitic and racist narratives are particularly evident in conspiracy theories quickly spread across the net, which suggest a targeted clan of secret elites. And these myths carry clearly anti-Semitic elements and stereotypes. And they claim, for instance, that Jews have prepared Corona to make money with a vaccine, or that the virus was even created by Israel. So my point is, the classic patterns are just being redeployed, and these conspiracy narratives have in some parts followed the same template for centuries, actually. And they are just adjusted to the newest crisis, and it is more important than ever to consistently fight them. And it was important for me to stress this point, really, because this is sort of, for us, the guiding principle also for our presidency. Now, on a practical level, and this is what you just were asking Mrs. Wojcik. On a practical level, the pandemic does mean we have to rethink the formats we had planned to address the subject during our presidency. So digital formats like the one we're using now will replace classical events for some time to come. For instance, we are exploring options to digitize an exhibition on early Holocaust researchers we had planned to bring to Brussels from Paris and from New York. And we're also moving the conference on structures and strategies to fight anti-Semitism planned for September online. And we'll also focus on conspiracy theories related to COVID-19 there. But as this event shows, this also allows us to address a wider section of the public and to discuss the topic where it is particularly toxic, which is online. And one of the key parts of our work on the fight against anti-Semitism during our presidency will also be the implementation of the Council conclusions of the 6th of December 2018, and in particular the aspect of the protection and safety of Jewish communities and institutions. And I leave, of course, the rest to my subsequent speakers, but Vinnie Goodman, I believe, has just given us numbers really that should motivate us to redouble our effort in this respect. So maybe so much from my side for the moment, and thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aston, for synthesizing for us the main points of focus that are intended for the coming months in the German presidency. I take note of the focus on online anti-Semitism, and I appreciate the way that it's being anchored in broader concerns with hate online. And also, we are looking forward to see how the implementation of the Council Declaration will actually take place, and we will return to this later on. We will come back to Ambassador Klein for a lot of the specifics, but let me first go to Ambassador Kuechler. On this year's International Holocaust Remembrance Day, the IHRA put forward the ministerial declaration by the 34 participating states, basically renewing its commitment to the Stockholm Declaration, the founding document of the IHRA. So I'm wondering, what does this renewed commitment actually look like in practice, and what will be the focus and what is already your focus during the German presidency of the IHRA, which started this March?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Ms. Bricman and Ms. Wojcik. Thank you very much for having organized this meeting, and I hope that there are many watching it. When it comes to the German presidency in the IHRA, we are guided by the principle the IHRA has declared in its Stockholm Declaration and also in the Ministerial Declaration of January 19th in Brussels, which you just mentioned. At the core of next week, next week, we'll start the first plenary within the German presidency. It will be an online plenary, but we hope very much that in November, end of November, beginning of December, we can have a plenary in presence, which then will be held in Leipzig. At the core of IHRA's endeavors to fight anti-Semitism is, of course, the IHRA working definition of anti-Semitism. As far as I can see, IHRA was the first organization, international organization ever to be able to adopt a definition of anti-Semitism. It had discussed for a couple of years already before, but it was finally adopted by all, at the time, 31 member states. Since then, going on about what is the definition? Is the definition only the text in the box, or is it also the examples? Well, first of all, one should perhaps look into the text itself. And in the text it says, the IHRA definition is a non-legally binding working definition to guide IHRA in its work. It was drafted by IHRA experts and adopted in consensus at the IHRA Bucharest plenary in 2016. Felix Klein was there and helped a lot to make that happen. IHRA definitions, like this one on anti-Semitism, reflect consensus among member states on how the IHRA should approach a particular issue. The IHRA uses working definitions to help guide it in its work. Working definitions are drafted by the IHRA experts and are adopted unanimously by IHRA member countries. They therefore reflect consensus among member countries on how the IHRA should approach particular issues. When IHRA member countries agreed to the text of the working definitions, they adopted it in its entirety, the text inside the box and the examples included. So that means each member country stands behind the text of the working definition in its entirety, the text inside the box and the examples included. The strength of the definition is that it rose awareness for an ever-growing rate of anti-Semitism. Since the definition was adopted, I already said, we lead enthusiastic discussions about its content. It needs to be improved, but we talk about whether it is, and that is a huge step forward. So this is a huge success presidency of the IHRA. We would like to further promote the adoption and of course also the implementation of the IHRA non-legally binding working definition. There are almost 20 member states EU members have on who has adopted it, how it was adopted, but what practice in using it. It's available to the 27 states of the European Union as a help those who have to the working definition and who have to implement it. In the case of Germany, it's clearly when it was adopted by the government, mainly as an instrument to detect and to fight anti-Semitism. The second priority, Holocaust denial and distortion, which is also a priority of our presidency in the IHRA. Ms. Kalinova just spoke about Holocaust distortion and denial. The IHRA definition of what Holocaust denial and distortion is, and we would like to have a definition as a definition on. We have decided to establish a global task force against Holocaust denial and distortion, with the adoption of the definition, and to develop
Ambassador, I'm afraid we don't hear you well.
Governments and so counter these.
I'm afraid we will have to come back to Ambassador Kuechler because we do have some technical issues. Ambassador, can you hear us? We have an issue with your internet connection, I think, and I suggest we come back to you shortly. We'll check what's going on. Apologies for that. In any case, we have noted your call
to adopt.
We will see. I will try to. Alina, did we lose Ambassador Kuechler?
Return to the ambassador a bit later on, and I think it's best to move on.
Okay.
I think we already heard some important points from Ambassador Kuechler that we will take with us forward.
Exactly, Alina, thank you very much. We've noted, of course, the call to continue to promote the adoption of the IHRA definition, which is something that we definitely promote. It is extremely important for us. And I managed to note the creation of this global task force against Holocaust distortion, which is extremely important. And of course, we would like to hear more about it in a second. Now I would like to turn to Dr. Felix Klein, whose dedication and persistence are known to us all. Dr. Klein, we are all familiar with the disturbing figure of 2,032 political crimes motivated by anti-Semitism recorded in Germany in 2019. Of course, the attack on the synagogue in Halle on Yom Kippur was the most violent one. As we look to Germany now for both effective leadership and moral commitment on the topic, how do we bring the measures to tackle anti-Semitism up to speed with the reality on the ground? We would like also to hear from you, Dr. Klein, what will be your specific priority during the presidency? Ambassador Klein, the floor is yours. Ambassador Klein, are you with us?
Now, yeah. Can you hear me? Okay,
yes.
Good. Of course, I mean, Germany has a very special responsibility, and you have of course mentioned the high expectations regarding our EU presidency, and of course we would like to live up with it. Also, in particular, in the view of this very sad fact you mentioned, that in Germany we have had an increase of anti-Semitic crimes by 13%. So the number is now more than 2,000 a year, which is really a terrible burden we are carrying. But on the other hand, just to mention that it also has a good, it's also like a positive effect on that, because we encourage Jews, victims and witnesses of anti-Semitic attacks to go to the police, to file an issue, because if you don't file a case, then the perpetrators never get pressure. So in that certain respect, there's also something positive in it. But what of course is terrible is the fact that anti-Semitism seems to be more politically correct, that the whole general atmosphere is so much more open towards anti-Semitic political discourse, etc. So we try to use our EU presidency to counter that. Jurij Aston has mentioned exactly the right, our priorities already. The Council conclusion of December 2018 offers many possibilities to go ahead with the fight against anti-Semitism. Michaela Kuechler has mentioned the fact that we try to get as many institutions and member states of the European Union as possible to to adopt the working definition, but at the same time we also urge member states to go on with the national strategies regarding anti-Semitism as the member states promised it in December 2018. So we will foster that. Jurij Aston has mentioned the big conference we are setting up in September. This will be a government conference where we will also get, of course, much input. Particularly, of course, what we have to do is speaking about the security of Jewish institutions in view of Halle, but also other terrorist attacks we've seen. And the second thing we have to really talk on in more detail is also to talk about the fighting anti-Semitism in the internet. A recent study has shown that radicalization online takes place 4 times faster than offline. So we need to adjust our laws. In Germany, we have just passed last week legislation banning anti-Semitism in the internet. We are inspired by the French example, and of course we would like to talk about that. And what we also would like to do is, since it is hard to tackle anti-Semitism in the European framework, because there's no real working group or council of ministers where we can locate anti-Semitism, because if you locate it only with ministries of the interior or ministers of justice, it is not enough. As we all know, anti-Semitism has so many facets and touches so many different different dossiers, and also institutionally many organizations, that we would like to have a general paragraph, a reference done by the European Council in December, that we establish the fight against anti-Semitism as a cross-cutting issue for the whole of the European Union, so that all decisions of the EU, regardless whether they are from the Commission, or from the Council, have to be viewed in that respect, that the fight against anti-Semitism is an issue which always has to be checked in any decision of the European Union. If we manage to have that, then we would have an institutional possibility for members of any working group or any institution in the EU to claim that and to talk about anti-Semitism when they have the need to do so. We are very happy that we get support from the Parliament. Nicola Beer is very active in that, and of course we need to have it established as a cross-cutting issue. And if we have a success there, and I think we could also enlarge it in some other step also the fight that we also get inspiration in the fight against racism, where many European countries, of course, are talking to.
A lot of important points that I was able to note. I think what you mentioned in the beginning with regards to reporting is an important point. We are often happy to see small numbers, but too many times they hide the lack of reporting, in fact. And that's something that we should keep in mind. How do we increase reporting? I see there is a consensus with regards to tackling anti-Semitism and hate online, which is very encouraging. And also I took important note of this idea of anti-Semitism as a cross-cutting issue, mainstreaming the fight against anti-Semitism within all sorts of policy. But I would like to push you a little bit further on the implementation of national strategies and taking forward the Council declaration on the fight against anti-Semitism. I think a big step in that direction has been the Commission Working Group on Anti-Semitism that Katharina von Schnurbein coordinates. It has helped a lot of member states to move forward in developing their strategies. But how can concretely the German presidency put pressure on member states to finally see these through within the initial deadline of the end of 2020?
Well, we have to strengthen the mandate of Katharina von Schnurbein and to give to the Commission the power to monitor and also then to claim the national strategies. We have so far some countries who have done so already. Romania is very far, Austria, France, also Sweden. I'm working myself on the German strategy, which I will start presenting in over summer because I have to give a report anyway to the German Parliament regarding the fight against anti-Semitism. That this will be the nucleus of the national strategy we are preparing. But it is very easy. I mean, the member states promised to do it, and it's up to the Commission and, of course, the chairmanship, the presidency to then ask to deliver. Of course, it is maybe, I think it's like in many chapters in human life. I mean, if we have first countries doing so, the others will be inspired and should be inspired. And that, of course, is my hope that will convince all the member states to deliver what they have promised.
Thank you very much, Dr. Klein, for always showing the way and leading other member states also in the right direction. We will come back to you in a few minutes, but I would like to bring back a bit the Jewish voices that are here with us for any reflection they may have on what's been said so far. So Raya, if we can start with you, if you would like to add something, please. Raya? Don't forget to unmute yourself.
That is what I'm trying to do. Do you hear me? Yes, and I would like to greet Dr. Felix Klein. It's a big pleasure as always. And I think that with these webinars, it's precious that we can still all get together and speak to each other in the presence of numerous colleagues and friends who are following us at this moment from all over the world. And what I would like just to, again, maybe to stress that the current crisis is a stress test for European democracy, and that extremists take advantage, as we spoke already, or all of you mentioned this, of political and economic instability to undermine our institutions. And attacks on Jews and minorities are only the beginning now for the moment. It will get worse and worse. And the German presidency is a unique opportunity to send a strong signal against anti-Semitism and all kind of extremism. And given its strong commitment and track record, I'm certain that we will achieve this the tangible progress. And I wanted to assure you of our full trust in German government and German institutions and in German civil society. We have full trust, and we know that in this 6 months, even with the priority given by everybody to the pandemic and economy, we will still achieve the good results and go forward and forward in the direction that we need to go, in the reinforcement of the adoption of the definition, on the law enforcement and all other policy advices that were given to national governments in December 2018. So I would like to wish good luck, and I hope that we will still be able to continue, and during the 6 months maybe to do some events to get all together, or to do some conferences, or just trying to reinforce this move forward. And I wanted to really to thank all of you. it's really an important meeting, I think, for us today.
Thank you very much, Raya. I would like also to give the floor to Bini, if you would like to add something on behalf of European Jewish youth. Bini.
Thank you very much. And I think it's great to see that so many of you have put the fight against anti-Semitism on the internet and against conspiracy ideologies on the forefront, because I think that is absolutely the fight that we need to have. But what does it actually mean? I think that we really need the EU there, and to start one step earlier. Because people don't just stumble into anti-Semitic and Telegram groups. People don't just stumble into 4chan and 8chan. It starts one step earlier. People get there through mainstream social media sites, especially through Facebook and through YouTube. So what needs to happen is that the European Union needs to start holding these companies accountable. This can only be done on the pan-European level. We need, on the one hand, to start treating these social media companies more like publishers. That means actually having them enforce content moderation properly. But it also means, especially with Facebook and with YouTube, working with their algorithms and making them change their algorithms, which are actually conducive to spreading hate speech online. Because this is their profit model right now. And if we act on a European level, we can actually change that. So I think if we are saying that we want to combat anti-Semitism on the internet, it means actually sanctioning these social media companies for what they are actually doing right now. At the same time, it also means making sure that politicians of parties that are actually in parliament all over Europe don't get normalized, that spread these theories, that spread these myths. Because we now have more and more politicians on the far right spreading conspiracy myths that are also used by far-right terrorists, that are used by far-right fringe figures, and spreading them in our parliaments. And I think it is for many reasons, but also now in this world where far-right terrorism is a new threat for Jewish communities in Europe again, and our duty to speak out against them, to make sure that they don't get normalized, whether it is in European Parliament or in national parliaments. So that was my first ask. My second ask, because some of you have mentioned reporting. And I want to circle back to the survey that the European Commission, the Fundamental Rights Agency, did together with WGAS last year, because it actually also showed some shocking results when it comes to reporting. Only 1 out of 5 cases of anti-Semitism that young Jews experience across Europe gets reported. The reason for that is that only 17% of young European Jews believe that their government does enough to combat anti-Semitism. So yes, let's work in getting better reporting structures. Let's make sure that all over Europe there are actually reporting systems in place. And let's make sure that governments take anti-Semitism more seriously, for instance, by implementing proper reporting standards, because right now they're not doing enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bini. You have, of course, raised very important issues. And the first one that you raised, anti-Semitism online, is actually our next point of focus, because we would like to go a bit more into details on this important issue. Also because, as you said, we know that conspiracy theories have bloomed the last 3 months. People were exposed much more to social media, and definitely the message of holding these social media giants accountable was one also of our main message at the last working group organized by the European Commission. So definitely this is something we would like to urge European authorities to continue to do. And in that sense, I would like to ask maybe Ambassador Klein, because he mentioned that the recent German legislation that was adopted, can it serve as a model to be implemented EU-wide? And because definitely in this field of anti-Semitism online, Germany has been at the forefront. You have been quite bold, and I'm sure it was proven successful somehow. You made some progress there. So can you please elaborate a little bit more on that topic? Thank you.
Yes, sure. I mean, the key of our legislation is to make the internet platforms not only responsible for the contents of anti-Semitic hate speech and to force them to delete anti-Semitic contents, but to identify, to give to the police the IP addresses of the perpetrators or the people who create and spread anti-Semitism for work for the police, so to investigate. This will create an incredible and unprecedented pressure on people who spread anti-Semitism, and studies we have undertaken in the last month show that these people they are impressed by pressure. They will certainly react. Maybe some of them even to other sources in the darknet and others, but many people, we hope, and we apply quite optimistic, will stop actually with spreading anti-Semitism in that way. So at the same time, of course, we need to enforce the police because, of course, somebody has to investigate there. And we, at the same time, of course, will also increase the knowledge in police and prosecutors' offices to discern anti-Semitism. So to learn to spread the working definition and to know what is Holocaust denial, what is Holocaust distortion. These are all crimes under German law. And with that whole package, we hope to be more efficient. One last thing is also important. We give to the courts in Germany now the possibility to punish anti-Semitic crimes more severely if that's the motivation of a crime. That was not. It was theoretically possible also before, but now anti-Semitic motivation of any crime is specifically mentioned in our penal code, and we hope that this will increase also the knowledge and the sensibilization of police forces and the prosecutors.
Thank you very much, Felix. It gives us a lot of important, insight on the topic, and also the importance of removing anonymity online. I think this is something that will make people more responsible when they spread hate. They will know that they can be found even in their homes, and you give the police the right and the ability to do that. And this is, of course, extremely efficient. So thank you very much. I would like to ask maybe if Ambassador Kuechler would like to add something. And of course, again, I'm sorry that we had to interrupt your intervention, but we had a problem with your internet connection. So let's hope now it's better. And I would like you to also give us your remarks on this topic. Thank you. Ambassador Kuechler, are you with us? Oh, we lost.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm afraid it's a bit past. But I couldn't agree more with the agenda to see it's a very practical but anti-Semitism. What we have Foreign Office, we have a unit that deals with
I'm sorry, Ambassador, we
like the suggested. Is it better now?
A little bit, but it's really we hear only partly what you are saying. It's very unfortunate, but I don't know it's probably an internet connection problem. Let's try one more time.
Is it better like this?
Let's try.
Like this better?
Let's see if we can only.
Okay.
Yes, let's try. I'm sorry, Ambassador. It's there's really a technical issue here. Maybe we'll go back to you shortly. I would like maybe ask.
Can you hear me?
Not well, unfortunately.
Can you hear me now? 1, 2, 3.
It's cut. It's cut. I'm really sorry. I will pass maybe the floor first to Dr. Aston to see if he has any reflection on this topic, and then we'll go back to Ambassador Kuechler. I'm really sorry.
Sorry, I'm afraid I'm having acoustical problems here too, so it's very hard to even listen or hear the others. Maybe because we have had some experience with VTCs already in the past months. Sometimes it helps to turn off the video function for all the others that are sort of just listening. Now, I checked on my device. I actually didn't find my own button to do this. So I don't know how good this advice is, but sometimes it helps because it reduces the data volume. So perhaps, but sorry, I was hardly able to follow the discussion. I don't know. Do you hear me, Italy? Okay.
Yes, we hear you, Dr. Aston. I just wanted to ask you if you had any particular remarks or addition to make on the point of anti-Semitism online, which has been a very big issue. And we have asked Dr. Klein, how can we promote the German model? How can we make sure that it's implemented EU-wide? So if you have any insight on that, we will be glad to hear it.
Well, I think, yeah, sort of what I would recommend sort of trying to do is probably, I think you just have to really lobby for this individually with partner and like-minded countries, first to do the same, to create sort of a critical mass of others that follow this path and take it up back again in the appropriate EU bodies and continue to keep it on the agenda and lead the way as a role model. I think that's very important, and keep the others engaged. So that would be, in short, my recommendation on doing this. Share practices, good practices on this, and also maybe tell the others that we had good experience with that, and that we're ready to engage in dialogue with the others to see how we can bring this forward. And as I said in my initial speech, I think this is becoming a big problem. And also it's a problem to target, obviously, also these let's say authors, or however you want to call it, and to educate others, and because sometimes it's just very closed sort of islands of communication that you hardly can reach. So that would be sort of my thoughts my spontaneous thoughts on what you were just mentioning.
Perhaps we can try to go to Ambassador Kuechler one more time on this point. And if not, I think with many regrets and apologies, I think unfortunately the internet isn't stable on your side. So let's try it one more time, fingers crossed.
Okay, can you hear me and see me now? Is it better now?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, good. I tried another device and maybe it's better now. Well, as to the Network Enforcement Act, which was passed a couple of years ago in Germany, I think it is a very important tool. And if we had something like this act at European level, and I have the impression that the Commission is working on a digital act which could also include these possibilities, I think that would be a great step forward. What we have done here in the Federal Foreign Office is to be in touch with our unit on disinformation, that is flooding the internet right now, and we are working on and trying to figure out how we can counter conspiracy myths about the role or the said role of Jews in the current corona pandemic, which is one of the most virulent conspiracy theories that is in the internet. So that is shortly from my side, and please go on to the next topic.
So perhaps since now the connection is going well, let me continue with you on the last topic that we thought would be relevant to address today, which is the importance of recognizing anti-Semitism across the political spectrum. Germany has really been at the forefront of tackling also left-wing anti-Semitism and recognizing the problematic nature of BDS. We've also seen a lot of anti-Semitism on the left co-opting extremist right-wing symbols and language. So how could your two portfolios perhaps play a role in mainstreaming this German perspective on the topic? So Ambassador,
well, first of all, let me start by saying that there is no good anti-Semitism. So anti-Semitism, be it from the left, from the right, or from the Islamic side, Muslim side, it's never a good anti-Semitism, as other forms of racism are. So there is nothing that would would let us accept one of the forms of anti-Semitism more than another one. When it comes to Germany, the perpetrators in the field of anti-Semitism, as far as crimes are concerned, they are, for more than 90% of them, are from the right-wing, right extremist side. There is a small number from the left extremist side and another small number from the Muslim side, which has been last year also going down. So the real problem we have, at least in Germany, is far right-wing extremism, far right-wing anti-Semitism. It is true there is a problem with left-wing anti-Semitism, and the way I think to confront this sort of anti-Semitism best is through a social dialogue with good arguments, which we should have. And when it comes to the Muslim anti-Semitism, I would like to mention one more event we are planning for our German presidency of the EU, and that is a meeting of the Enkate network, which is being promoted by KIGA. KIGA is a non-governmental organization in Berlin. It's called Kreuzberger Initiative gegen Antisemitismus, Initiative of Kreuzberg, which is a part of Berlin, against anti-Semitism, and they have created a European network to counter anti-Semitism, and it integrates also young Muslims and tries them to teach to change also perspective, and tries them to teach them to be tolerant and not to start othering Jews without even knowing them. So this is one other thing we are going to do during our presidency. Thank you very much.
And I'm sure that KIGA will appreciate the shout out. They're a great initiative. I've had the chance to work with them a few times. And indeed, I think it's important to keep this motto of there is no good anti-Semitism. I think it seems banal, but it's so important to underline. So on that note,
Alina, maybe before I give the floor back to our host MEPs, maybe Ambassador Klein would like to say some final words on this topic also of left-wing anti-Semitism and BDS. Felix?
Yes, thank you. Well, we have, as in many countries, also our Bundestag has passed a resolution regarding BDS and naming it being in methods and aims anti-Semitic. And it is my job also to monitor that. And we have had several cases where speakers were close to BDS and supporters wanted to have the public floor in cultural festivals and also well, theater groups. And when that happened, of course, I raised the voice and made it very clear that we will not accept any form of anti-Semitism, and BDS is no harmless anti-Semitism at all. We hope that also other countries in the EU will also pass legislation, will be monitoring the situation. As Michaela Kücher said, when it comes to crimes, left-wing anti-Semitism is not very widespread. But when you monitor, social environments, university environments, etc., left-wing anti-Semitism is quite widespread, and it is very dangerous, to my opinion.
Thank you very much for your vigilance always on all the topics. I would like to thank, of course, yourself, Ambassador Klein and Ambassador Kuechler, and of course, Dr. Aston for being with us. As we are going to come to a close, I would like to pass the floor to our host MEPs who have carefully listened to all the discussion, and I would like to give them the floor to share any final reflections they may have. Sergey, we can start with you perhaps.
Thank you so much. I hope that that you can hear me now. Thanks to everyone. It's great to see faces whom you usually see in real life here, also digital. I think this was an interesting discussion, and I think it's a great start for fruitful 6 months. I hope that we can collaborate also on behalf of the Parliament, and I'm sure the Vice President of the Parliament, who will speak after me, will deepen this idea. But one point that I heard is that maybe it is a good thing that Germany, that has and had to deal with these issues for years, is bringing expertise in dealing with its past, but also dealing with the issue of anti-Semitism, an expertise which is historically and of course also innovatively, I must say, if we're talking about current times, quite unique. And we see it with the figures like Ambassador Klein, who is an emblematic person in this discussion, who brings a lot in this discussion, and I'm very hopeful that this unique expertise in dealing and self-critically dealing with this issue will also offer us new chances in bringing it to a European level. So I'm looking forward to collaborating in the upcoming 6 months.
Thank you very much, Sergey. I think this call for collaboration is duly noted. And I would like now to pass the floor to Vice President Beer, please.
Yes, thank you, and a special thank to all the speakers on this event. I think it highlighted as well the necessity to combat anti-Semitism all over Europe, but also the big plans and ideas you have on this topic. So I'm looking forward for a very active two very active presidencies in the upcoming months, which can really coordinate and focus on the topic. as you mentioned, especially also by the help and support of the task force, so that we urge member states in Europe to develop and to implement national strategies, to take notice of best practice in other member states, not only Germany. I mean, there are a lot of good examples we can use to implement, and I think this would be really a progress, to implement a general reference by the European Council, so that it's really a cross-cutting issue, and I mean duty, a real duty to check with all the decisions and all the rule making. And maybe, Sergey, we can also take this in account for European Parliament. We adopted the IHRA definition, but maybe we have to evaluate how we deal with this definition. And so I think it's important to mention in this conclusion also that it doesn't make a difference for which reason anti-Semitism is spread out. Far-right political anti-Zionist, left-right, religious, or only because of stupidity. We have to act on this. We have to unmask these narratives, and we have to show that we have positive narratives. So I think this intervention from Benny Goodman was really important, so that people know Jewish life, Jewish culture, all the positive cooperations we have. And so for me, it's quite important to say at the end, be aware of anti-Semitism, take actions against it, so, and inspire others to take action together with you, so that we all together build a stronger Europe without anti-Semitism and without racism, stronger Europe, which is strong for all of us. Thank you.
That's a wonderful message to end on. Thank you so much, Vice President Beer. Thank you, MEP Lagodinsky, and our thanks to Ambassador Kuechler, Ambassador Klein, Dr. Aston, Ms. Kalenova, and Mr. Goodman for your participation today. The Working Group Against Anti-Semitism will surely be a strong partner in the coming months, and we look forward to working with all of you to create an accelerated push to tackle anti-Semitism. To everyone who has been watching, thank you so much for tuning in, and goodbye.